Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. Lots going on these days. A lot of things that could potentially affect us, especially in the world of our cities, municipalities, transportation, and such. This gentleman has spent decades with his eye on urban planning and everything that surrounds that, especially as an urban and regional planner at the University of Pittsburgh. And he's always plugged into everything. Amazes me. He's since moved on from that position, but he's always looking. He's always got his eye on what's going on these things that affect us. We're going to talk about transportation, at least start there today. He is our man of the year. Richard Golden Bickel Jr. is back with us. Hey, Richard, how you doing today?
Very good, Steve.
Yeah, wonderful to have you back here. I always have to preface talks like this by saying, I don't engage in politics. I don't take sides. I just repeat the facts. And, that those are news reports. What's going on now, it seems like there is some talk about cutting funding to transportation projects around the country, millions and millions of dollars. I don't know if it's started yet, but that is what's on the plans. At least it's looking that way. Want to start there today. If funding for many of these transportation projects around the country actually takes place with a lot of cuts with federal agencies, what's your first thought on that, Richard?
Well, transportation projects have numerous impacts. Some people would say they have negative impacts, but overall, I think transportation projects are a key component to promote development and a positive effect on the economy.
That being said, and there's many, many different projects going on out there or proposed. How is that going to impact things if the funding is cut off? What's that going to do to our economy, first of all?
Yeah, the effect could be immediate because if projects are cut back, they're not going to get completed. And then the people at the local level have to, and MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, would have to scramble to come up with alternatives to use the federal dollars. And it's just not a good situation because projects may be in the engineering phase or they may be in the actual implementation phase. And the projects may have a couple of more years to go, and yet they can't be completed because there's not enough money.
So there has been talk that there's a lot of inflated spending going on within the federal budget. Do you think that is a very strong possibility? And again, there's so many different projects, it's hard to even know what each one of them entails. But do you think there's the potential for a lot of fluff within, excess spending that doesn't need to take place?
Well, the old term used to be pork, that congressmen or senators would put in projects that benefit their district, and they were viewed as pork projects because they really did not have a wide constituency. This happened a lot in the old days, but Congress has tried to tighten up the ability to do these kinds of projects, and the Transportation Committee in Washington and the federal funding process is a lot stricter than it used to be.
Do you think it might be advantageous, instead of just cutting everything or cutting a large part of the transportation budgets around the country, to just go in there with a microscope and really look a little bit deeper in how the funds are being distributed?
Well, that's one option, but that's a painstaking process.
Right.
And then you'll have more competition among regional entities to make sure their projects move ahead, or you'll have competition within the MPO boards to make sure that certain projects move and others can be deferred. Either way, it's a messy situation and does not lead to positive benefits, because a lot of those projects, what I used to say, one person's pork is another person's best project. And so the political reaction should be fierce, and the transportation process has always favored highways. And what I'm concerned about is that the money going to highways will still be plentiful, but the money going to public transit might get cut back, and that will be very damaging to the advancement of key transit projects.
Yeah, a great point that you bring up there, Richard, in that, if they put the microscope on these projects, instead of just cutting them, but looking to see where they can effectively cut, even best case scenario, it's just going to delay things, which always get delayed anyway. So, huge undertaking, and that would be. What do you think the answer is at this juncture? Leave it as it is? Look at taxes?
Where the Trump administration has a clear policy to reduce federal funding and cut back on federal agencies. If that continues to move ahead, there won't be much to do except to try to come up with alternatives to make the best out of a poor situation.
I want to pivot over to a different area, and I'm just curious on how the whole process works. But I heard in Louisiana, there's a planning organization there that holds public meetings, and they discuss transportation improvement projects throughout the area. They've been doing it for years. Essentially, public comments on whether they should change a road, improve a road, add another lane, all of that. Is that typically how the process works when it comes to planning?
Well, the ideal approach would be the local government or the county would have a long-range plan that would define ahead of time what the priorities are for that area, and they would have held public hearings and not just react to what's happening at the moment. If they are reacting, it sounds like what they're doing in Louisiana is an approach to at least assess the public reaction to these projects. And another place which has a very democratic approach is Nantucket Island, where they have a town meeting and just talk about their budget, the capital projects, all kinds of things, and take a vote at the public meeting. That is very rare, and that's sort of an old-fashioned governmental process, but it seems to work in Nantucket. But that's a very unusual case. I don't think it would go over too well in other parts of the country. But with the Metropolitan Planning Organization process is where the long-range plan is tied to the capital projects and vice versa. And that's where the horse trading or whatever goes on at the Metropolitan Planning Board.
Did I hear you right that they actually take a vote, and the vote is what at the end of the meeting? It's like, all right, here we are. We just had, we're thinking about adding another lane. What does everybody think? We're going to take a vote, and there it goes. Yeah,
they have this meeting process, and they vote on the budget, the issues of the day, like affordable housing, which produces a lot of negative comments at the local level, and that's how they seem to run these things.
Wow, amazing how it can potentially go that way. It sounds like the old days. That's literally what it sounds like. We're going to We're going to grab a call. Hi, who do we have? I guess we lost them. All right.
Oh.
If you want to reach out to us, 631. So many different weather-related challenges lately. 631-438-1576. I do have an email, and this one, actually, I just want to tell everybody, you've been instrumental in helping anybody that's looking for a career in urban planning have a better view of it, learn a little bit about the process. And with that, I've got Kelly checking in from Dallas. And she says the following: my son has considered changing majors and looking at urban planning. Who does one work for in that position? Is it a municipality or is it also private companies?
Definitely both. I started at a county planning commission working on local planning and going to night meetings with local elected officials and their representatives. And then later on went to MPO board meetings in the Philadelphia area. And that's how I ended up at SEPTA, because I was interested in public transit. Mm-hmm. And so the process is pretty well defined. The question is whether the entity has the budget to hire additional staff, or if someone leaves, they can hire replacements. And that's what's going to happen at the federal level, because some of the people are going to retire rather than getting laid off, and that will leave some spots open if there's sufficient funding to add replacements.
Well, based on what we were just talking about and some of the changes in the administration, it may be better to look for a job in the private sector. Just thinking there. I do believe we have a call now. Hi, can you hear us?
Yep. It's Josh. I'm thankful I could get through. I know we had a crazy windstorm. I'm calling from Ohio University. The gentleman is so inspiring. He's kind of got me wanting to change my major right now. The planning, that work that it takes, it's something that you really do have to love. And it caught my ear and definitely is intriguing.
That's very good to hear. Planning can be approached from different levels and agencies. Engineering is a good background to get into planning. A master's degree in planning or even an undergraduate degree in planning is also a way to get started. And the key point is to interact with the local governments or areas that you're involved in where you end up. Or you could even work for the private sector and be a planning consultant, and you'll do some of the same things. And planning's a broad field, and another aspect is demographics, population and employment statistics, and that is the basis for a lot of the long-range plans, because it shows whether the area is growing or declining, what the strategy should be to redevelop the area, or what the strategies would be to contain the growth that's occurring and make sure it's in the right location at the right density.
Josh, what attracts you most about a potential field in urban planning? Is it that you have the opportunity to shape the future? It's like almost anything can be potentially possible.
Exactly. It's a lot of shaping the future and what we see every day. I love the problem solving with the logistics of it. And it's listening to him kind of inspired me to really want to change my field.
I started in pre-med, and I took a couple of chemistry courses at the University of Pittsburgh, and I discovered I was not going to be a doctor. And so I scrambled around for something to do, and I discovered discovered an urban geography course, which is another good prerequisite for planning.
Nice.
And that's where I got involved with the teacher was a professor at the planning school. I found it very interesting, and I stayed at Pitt to get my master's degree.
Wow. Yeah, I appreciate you calling in, Josh, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, man, and keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, the statistic part I find intriguing, and you've mentioned that once before. Do you have to have a love of stats and information and facts to get into this field?
Well, you need to at least understand what the census is, what the different economic reports are, and that you can't just say, I want to build a road, and not have anything to back it up. You've got to have the population growth, or decline, the economic situation, and the issue of environmental impact statements is focused on the environment initially, but it also includes what's going on with the community and what the strategy will be to coordinate the transportation projects with the growth and development plan for the area. That is the ideal situation. The plan is supposed to be a long-range vision, usually 20 years, of what's going to happen if everything goes right. And the various transportation projects are supposed to support the plan's goals and also provide a basis for the federal funding and state funding that will be necessary.
Do you find, Richard, when a project is proposed and there's been some data and it's very clear, yeah, we need this. At least you feel it in your heart, yeah, this needs to take place. Does it almost feel like you become sort of like a politician rallying for it? Because now you've done the research, you've talked to some constituents, maybe politicians, whatever it might be, and now you truly feel that this is what this town, city, county needs. Does it almost feel like you're a politician rallying for the change?
A little bit, but rather than get directly into politics, you want to encourage the decision makers, mm-hmm. who are usually the planning commission, not the planning commission, but usually the local elected officials, with the advice of the planning commission, to look at the project and determine whether it's what they want. And if they want it, they have ways and means to coordinate with their higher level elected officials to see if they can make that project happen.
Sure. Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that you are a politician, but just the feel of it, where yes. you have to convince others that once you believe in it, you have to convince others that we need to do this. This is, I've done the research, I've talked to others and all of that. Why? This is a broad question, but it's always in the back of my mind. We've mentioned before, I'm on Long Island, New York. I imagine it may be this way in other areas. Why do roadway projects take so long to complete? Why?
It's not just highways. It's transit projects sometimes take longer than the highway projects because there's a constituency for highway improvements that usually involves local chambers of commerce, economic development agencies, etc., and public transit is competing with them for their projects, which have less funding support, and also both kinds of projects generate what's called NIMBY, not in my backyard, where local residents sometimes will organize to oppose a worthy project because it has impacts at the very local level. And that's been a history of transit projects, and it's even more prevalent when you're talking about affordable housing projects.
Well, once the project begins, obviously it's been approved, money has been set aside, et cetera. it just seems that so many of these just take so long. Again, I don't know the back end of it, the logistics in cutting up a road, adding asphalt and all of that. But it's, you look at it and you say, can't they go any faster? Or maybe it's a limited crews because of budget. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, look at the 2nd Avenue subway in New York, which has been planned for almost 100 years. And they're finally getting around to extending it further north towards the Bronx, and it's just endless. And
then you wonder, where is money going? For example, you drive down the road and there's potholes everywhere. You're just waiting for a tire to blow out or some kind of front end damage of your vehicle, and then you wonder, why are they not addressing that? Where is the priority going? I guess, there's no answer to that.
Well, the maintenance budget is usually different from the capital program. And there's a constituency for a capital program, but there may not be a constituency for the places where the potholes are most prevalent. And that's a challenge.
It just almost... deep inside, I laugh, and I've dealt with it, over years, where you suffer some damage to your vehicle because of the potholes, but nobody in the the municipality level wants to hear it. Like, you're on your own, get it fixed. Sorry, it's challenging.
Yeah, I've noticed that the local governments, though, are very careful to incorporate maintenance projects in their budgets because. Other than the NIMBY syndrome, if you want to see irate citizens, if it's when they're dealing with potholes and other issues that affect the local environment and their well-being.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I just look at it from a taxpayer standpoint. You want to keep people happy, fix the roads the way they are before you try and expand upon them. You're hitting potholes while somebody's adding a lane over here on this side.
Yep, that's the reality of local government and the transportation planning and implementation process.
Yeah, I have much respect for you and all the years that you worked with taxpayers, politicians, constituents, on and on and on, because I see it, the more and more I talk with you, Richard, it seems like a massive, delicate balance that's going on.
It is. Yeah.
I can't imagine. Thank you so much for being here, all your insight. And again, if anybody wants to reach out, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com for the next time we get together. Richard, totally appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.